Det her er Konkursklubben.
Podcasten, der vender nedtur til optur. Sammen med vores fantastiske gæster vil vi,
Christian Markus
og Camilla Inge, udforske virksomhedsejerens største frygt. Konkursen.
Så kom med indenfor i Konkursklubben.
Turning up the volume, dancing through the night. What they say good things, they don't always last. Now the music fades, but the memories blast. Just wanna have fun, paint the sky with trucks.
Hej Camilla.
Hej.
Today we're actually doing our first English speaking episode.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, it's all right.
You are totally forgiven. Today we have Nick Bridge as a guest on the podcast. Welcome, Nick.
Thank you.
We are really happy to have you here to talk about your life because you've been around the block a couple of times.
That's not very kind.
It's not very kind.
I think it's fair. Round the block.
Yeah.
Been around.
You've been around.
Been around. Done
Yeah.
some stuff.
Yeah. So before we go into the story and have you do a little introduction about yourself, let's do what we do every time on the podcast. We have a new theme song every time that AI makes, and we need to put on our headphones for that.
King.
Okay.
Let's do this.
So there's many other songs that we would maybe like to have on the podcast today that could be like a really specific and telling theme song. Would you have an idea?
I wanted just the two of us with, I was just about to say Denzel Washington, but that's an actor, something Washington Jr.
His version's
You know.
great though.
Just the two of us.
I think Will Smith actually did a version of that song. Yeah.
Yeah, but the thing is, we don't have the money to pay the royalties to use those kinds of songs. So what we do is we have ChatGPT make a lyric, and then we have another AI do the song. So let's hear the song and see if it fits the bill.
I just wanted fun, bank the world and ride views. Had a little just spread the love and break the news. Girls are awesome in this new beef, yo. Me and Danny on a mission, all about that we go. From the rooftop nights to the city lights glow. Party so electric, let the colors flow. Thought we had forever in the group in the blend, but they say all good things got come to an end. We were just here to make it right, turning up the volume, dancing through the night. What they say good things, they don't always last. Now the music fades, but the memories blast. Just wanna have fun, paint the sky with trust. Girls are awesome, make the world more just.
I like that. What was the prompt?
Oh, the prompt: write a rap lyric, verse, and chorus about : I just wanted to have fun while making the world more colorful and just. Girls are awesome. Felt me and Danny, and it turned into a mission and awesome parties. But apparently, all good things must come to an end.
And
This is
here
awesome.
we may want to tell the listener that Nick founded Girls Are Awesome with his best friend, like
Yeah.
your best friend Danny. And that's the company that you went through bankruptcy with and that we're going to talk about today.
Also true.
So, Nick, tell us a little bit about your origin story. You came to Denmark when, and take it from here.
1999. To kind of preempt it, I grew up in New Zealand until I was 20. Skating, snowboarding, playing drums in a punk band. I went on to do hospitality and tourism and became a chef. And when I was 20, I left New Zealand for a 3-month holiday and never came home. I had $1,500 in my pocket and I went to a tiny valley in Austria to snowboard the POW, you know. And I met a wonderful Danish woman. And after 6 months and the power ran out, we moved to Denmark. And as with so many foreigners, that didn't last. And I left and I ended up coming back one summer and I started to spend the summers in Denmark working in bars. And then I would travel to the Alps in the winter and snowboard. And then I'd come back and do rinse and repeat. And in that process, I met my wife, Mila, and stuck around. Copenhagen was starting to blossom as a city. When I moved here, you know, you could get a pasta salad and Boons Beste Burger, and there wasn't, you know, people were like, why would you come here? and that's changed so much. Now people are like so proud of this city, and it's become a true global super city, and it's amazing. But when I moved here, it was like there wasn't much going on, which kind of actually sparked the magazine, which we'll talk about, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you weren't satisfied with being a chef, so you started a magazine. Why? And why a magazine?
Well, everything's in parallel because I started discovering that I liked front of house more because I'm super social, and the hours were crazy being a chef. And so the magazine was a stupid idea one afternoon. We literally just been driving 4 guys around Europe in a Volkswagen bus, as you do when you're 23. Came back to Denmark, hanging around. It's kind of winter-ish, fall, and we're at the bagel shop on Elmegale, and we're like, hey, should we go home and get stoned and make a magazine?
Yeah.
So we did that, and it was, a zine with a scalpel that we borrowed from our nurse friend, and we stapled the stapler wasn't long enough, so we had to staple it into a cardboard box and then fold it with butter knife, each magazine. And then we released it at Rubber Dub one night, and we got one email from a guy I still know, and he's like, "Oh, I love this article or something you did." So we made another one.
So released it at Rubber Dub. What was Rubber Dub again?
Rubber Dub was what became Europe's best reggae club.
It was a Sunday club.
Rubber Dub Sundays, We Fuck Your Mondays. Yeah, it was
It was
a
on
dance floor
Stengade
from
30.
10 p.m. and Stengade. It was brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's still a remnants around the city of Rubber Dub.
Yeah.
So that magazine, you actually professionalized it, and it became an actual magazine that you published.
It did.
Over time.
However, I think as we're saying, we never made a penny, and I had a full-time job on the side.
Okay.
So this was a full-time job on top of the full-time job. Because we loved it. It was kind of an opportunity for creative expression. It was just dumb and fun. We
and
did
what
whatever.
is the name of the magazine?
So the magazine was called Bitch Slap.
And a bitch slap is what we in Danish call en losing.
Yeah.
Like
And I think it's maybe worth talking about that because like in 2024, I get that's not the greatest name. When we did the first issue, Dan just wrote the word on the cover as a placeholder, and we never changed it. And it was dumb, but it suited that we were also dumb, and dumb in the good way as well. So we had a lot of fun. We did stupid stuff. People reacted positively to it. It was dumb, but it wasn't offensive. I wouldn't name it that now. It's not the time, right? Yeah. So that's also, it comes up to kind of haunt me occasionally going on to do Girls Are Awesome. People are like, how could you do that and that? But it's not a gendered title. And
no. And that's also how we met.
True.
At that time, I had a place in Nørrebro called Canvas Fine Art Gallery. And it was an art gallery combined with a fashion store. We sold music and gin and Le Clint lamps. And we also had a co-working space in the back and a music studio in the basement.
Super future.
And it was in 2003,
Really,
4, 5 maybe. I had it for 3 years. And you came in the door with Danny with a magazine in your hand. Like the first, or not even a magazine?
People seem to think they know the first one, but it's 300 copies made by hand, so there's not that many.
No.
It was probably 3 or 4. Oh, no, because you advertised in issue 4.
I advertised in issue 4.
Yeah.
And you came in with the magazine, and I was like, yeah, let's do this. So we came
It was our
up.
first real meeting sitting down. Previously, people had sent us a text message saying, lay this out. This is your ad. I'll give you 500 kroner.
Yeah.
And we had this, I remember how we had the meeting with you and we were like, oh, this is big time. They were professionals now.
Because we had a sit down.
We had a sit down. We sat and had a coffee and we talked about it. And you said, I'll support you with maybe 5,000 kroner.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's heaps. Thank you.
So that magazine was your first attempt at entrepreneurship.
Yeah, I believe
Yeah.
so. Yeah. I mean, I've always kind of mucked around as a kid. Like I would photocopy things and go sell it to the neighbors for
It's
50
a
cents.
theme.
Yeah.
It's a theme for entrepreneurs
Yeah.
that they were doing crazy things as, when they were kids.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
knocking on the neighbors' doors and trying to, hustle them for a bit of money so you could get a thing that you wanted, right? Yeah, I definitely have a history of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
What did
So-
you sell as a kid, Camilla?
I didn't sell anything, but I guess I was very much a creator even then. For instance, I turned my room into a forest.
Okay.
My dad worked for the phone company, so over years I've been collecting leaves and pressing them in the phone books, and I had it as tapestry, like leaves. Yeah, and I sanded down all the panels, took off the carpet, and got like a green carpet. I have tree trunks and stuff like that. Yeah.
Sounds cool.
So yeah, and I went to do vertical farming.
Yeah,
and,
there's a
work with
direct line to that,
building
right?
integrated agriculture. So it's funny.
That's
you know,
funny.
when you look backwards.
When you look at it that way, also going
Yeah.
back and selling photocopies of stuff, it's the same. It's like print. I've been in print forever.
Yeah.
I went to a place called Lautrup Gård when I grew
I
up
did painting
in.
classes there.
Yeah, and I did the metalwork classes where we had what do you call it, drejebænk? Something it spins really fast and you cut stuff.
I think it's
a
called a lathe,
drejebænk. Yeah,
but
lathe.
I could be mistaken.
So I would get old skateboard wheels from my
Mm.
friends, and I would put them in drejebænk, and I would cut them down so they weren't big and clunky like they used to be, but small and narrow like they were supposed to be. So I sold skateboard wheels to my friends.
Done it. Been there. We laid their wheels
Mm.
as well because like early 90s, wheels got small,
Yeah.
pants got baggy.
Yeah.
We laid their wheels down to like 32 mils. They're like just bigger than the bearings, right? It was so stupid.
It was fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
Crazy. Okay, so Girls Are Awesome. This company, it sort of sprang from the magazine.
It did.
Yeah.
Yep. So early on, we had this page called Girls Are Awesome, and it was just this kind of pretty naive, very male gaze-ish list of reasons why we thought girls were awesome. We recognized the lack of representation as we grew older, and we were kind of like, okay, what's this all about? We saw like in the magazines that we looked in, it was all guys, skateboard magazines, snowboard magazines.
Music scene.
Yep, music. I mean, it's everywhere once you start digging, right? And I think the unfortunate reality is that a lot of men, and not all, but a lot of men start to think about this topic of equality when they get a daughter. And that's the case for me. Danny and I have daughters, and they're best friends, and it's amazing. One of the best things in the world. You're having your best mate and your daughters are best friends.
No.
And you just start thinking about like, what is the world? What does it mean to be a girl in 2015? What does that future look like? And we kind of had this clumsy sort of pathway. We were like, oh, why don't we turn the Girls Are Awesome into its own platform? We'd kind of tried. We did a Girls Are Awesome featured magazine that was called Girls Are Awesome, and it wasn't great. It was maybe a bit too clumsy, and the people we featured and stuff. Looking back, but yeah, we wanted to make a platform, and initially it was like celebrating women, and that developed really quickly into increasing representation because that was a deeper purpose, and it was more interesting, and it was more purposeful, right? So going from like guys celebrating women to humans increasing representation. And we slowly started building it out. We got some partners in, also with a clunky business deal that wasn't really on paper, and like, we'll give you a little bit of maybe this, and you can sit here at our office and we'll take half of everything you ever do. And we were so excited at that point to reach a point where someone wanted to help us that we said absolutely. And that worked fine for many years. And when we started putting a focus on it, the focus started falling off the magazine, because I remember feeling early 2016 like this was a calling. I was like, this is what I'm supposed to do. stumbled, fumbled forward into this point, but this is important.
The girls are awesome.
Yeah.
Project.
Because until then, it's been very much like a playful process, or
Absolutely.
you're just having fun with your mates. And
Yeah. And looking back at the old magazines, I still laugh out loud. Like, I think it was great. It was pretty funny, right?
Yeah.
And but stupid, but in a good way. And so, we kind of started to build it out. We started as a media platform. So we were kind of like a blog. So we would tell stories. We would interview people and stuff. And then I was like, okay, we need to bring people in. We need to create a community. I don't think I used the word community. It was like, how do we bring people in? So we started doing events. We did talk events. We did panel talks. We put on concerts, and it just sort of started to grow.
So it was more like an event agency in the beginning.
I don't think we really had a business plan.
Yeah.
We didn't have a business plan. We didn't have a business model. We didn't have a case. We just wanted to do this thing, and it would figure itself out.
Yeah.
We pre-launched at Roskilde Festival, and we had produced 30,000 stickers. One of my partners, brilliant graphic designer, made the logo, which has carried on to this day, where it says "Girls Are Awesome," and there's a lightning, which is to signify energy and power. And we launched with a stage at Roskilde at the skate, skate stage.
Yeah.
And we would give people stickers. And what we saw there was people would take the sticker and put it on their T-shirt. And we went, that's maybe a proof of concept that we could make a T-shirt. And so we made a T-shirt, and then people bought the T-shirt. And then went, okay, interesting, because, we started to need to pay staff because we had a couple of people at the stage. So it kind of just organically grew in that way. But a lot of the activations and event and all that stuff we did weren't focused on a financial benefit. It was sort of purpose first, and then money will figure it out. We weren't really, that wasn't our driver, our motivator. It became it because we needed it to.
And on that point, that was also something that I have that we all felt when you did Bitch Slap magazine, when you did all of your events. There was a lightness and a purpose-driven, just fun and games to whatever you did. And as you said, it was a bit of a dark times in Copenhagen at that time. It wasn't that culturally interesting, and Distortion hadn't really happened yet, which is another guy coming from outside of Denmark to really create culture in Copenhagen. And you used the word clumsy a couple of times when you described Bitch Slap. And I would challenge that and say it was much more fun and humorous and playful. And I remember reading that page, Girls Are Awesome, and just thinking, wow, this is really cool. This is really fun that you have a full page of just statements on why you think girls are awesome. And it was really heartfelt, cute, silly things. So I had my ex-girlfriend had one of your posters. I remember you did posters of the Girls Are Awesome pages that was in super high demand, and it was usually the women who bought those posters and put them on their walls,
bathroom walls.
Yeah, exactly, right.
100%.
And that humor really also carried on, I think, into Girls Are Awesome.
So, just to speak to your thing about challenging me saying clumsy, thanks for that. I think growing up in skateboarding, you generally have a pretty strong intuition about sort of what's what urban culture wise. And I think that we have both quite a strong intuition about things culture wise. Danny especially, he knows if people are using a sans serif font, he's like, no, I'm not touching that because in 2 years people are going to be using this. And then it comes. He's always been a little bit ahead of the curve, and I'm just kind of following in his footsteps.
Is he a designer?
He's a designer, art director.
Design?
He's by trade, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. And I'm a cook.
Yeah, so back to the Girls Are Awesome story. I think we left it off around Roskilde, where you started making clothes.
Yep.
And So you didn't have a business plan. You didn't know what your product was. You just knew that you had a mission on. So could you take it from there?
And was it you started in 2015? Oh,
Yeah, we started 2015. We launched in 2016. So as we're saying, this is pre Time's Up, pre Me Too. Well, the idea was to use culture, maybe commerce, to drive an agenda. Feel like there's many roads to change and equality and stuff, and some are political, some are activism, and there's not that many people. You see it now more with brands like Patagonia, who we were like really inspired by, using commerce to drive change. And some people are ready for that, and some people not. But yeah, we wanted to do partnerships with companies. We thought we could create impact and change within those organizations by setting up rules, like play rules. How do we interact with each other? How do we work together?
so you sort of invented like a whole new business structure and also a culture, I guess.
Potentially, I don't know. And, you know...
You attempted to.
Yeah, we attempted to. And none of this stuff's easy. I think what I've learned, and also through the work that I do now, is that when you're working within a purpose space, that it's hard enough to run a company. You know, you're running on low resources, low money, and then you add a complex leg or wing or focus, which is often changing, super dynamic. You know, you look at how feminism movement moved from 2015 to 2024.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of changes. There's a lot of pivots and swerves in the road. So yeah, and I think so. Basically, we just tried to. I think part of the success and part of the challenge came from my popcorn brain saying, "Let's do everything." So I've always had pretty strong network, and so would reach out to different companies and people and venue owners and brands and different things and say, hey, we've got this amazing thing, we have a strong vision, could we partner up? Would it be interesting to do something? It could be a product collaboration, it could be we do an event together, you could sponsor our thing, we could come out to your company, we could just... So it was many things, and we spent the entire lifespan of the company trying to define what that is. And I don't know if we ever got there.
No.
And that's also okay. We were also happily undefined in the start. We wanted people to be curious about it. People were like, what is it? And like, what is it to you? To some people it was a brand. To some people it was a movement. It got a pretty significant social media following quite quickly. Nothing compared to what people have now, but for us it was a lot of people. So we had conversations there, and it was a real community because we spoke with people every day and listened to their concerns and their
Do you find that times have changed in that way, that we now need to sort of produce much sort of more clear brands with clear messages because the world has become so noisy? Is it hard? Do you think it's harder today than it was like in 2016, 17?
I don't know. I don't know. I would argue that it's okay to make something that's weird and confusing. Yeah. I think that just follow intuition and make things that make sense to you. And I don't know, like people, there's such a cookie cutter culture now. Like you have every brand is like popping up 12 franchises, and I feel like that you get some funding and you make 12 bakeries, or you get some funding and you do this.
Yeah.
And
it's also what we're taught in entrepreneurship with all these in the ecosystem and all these programs, and also like what Christian works with. It's very much about getting super clear on things in this minimal viable product, right? Focusing on as little as possible. Simplifying.
And really being very, very focused on what is the value that you want to bring to who. And that's also something that following your path, seeing what you've done from the outside, I've always felt that you had a very clear edge and a very clear fingerprint. It was clear to see that it was you guys, that it was Girls Are Awesome. Tell me a little bit about the Adidas collaboration. What was the big things there?
That sprang out of a person in my network who just happened to work at Adidas at the time. I was at a party in Munich releasing a shoe from some pro skater, and I was wearing a jacket which was hand printed by Mette Dahløge, who used to do Punk Royale.
Oh yeah.
And she said, "What are you up to nowadays?" And I said this, and I could just see on her face, she goes, "Come, tell me, sit down here." And I had to pitch. I didn't know how to pitch it. I didn't know what it was. And so I was like, "Oh, we're doing this. We're trying to celebrate women and representation." And they were like, "Okay, cool." Flew down to Herzog, Nuremberg, to the Adidas headquarters. They invited me down. I had like a 23-hour day where I got 22 minutes in front of someone who didn't understand what it was I was talking about. I went home completely deflated. I was like, okay.
Do you remember what you tried to pitch them? Can you sort of try to reenact the pitch?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's really cool, man. No, I don't know. I couldn't tell you. Just that we were on this mission. We wanted to, reach equality. It was like big picture, blue sky thinking.
Yeah.
And they were talking about that their focus right now was performance. And I'm like, but people are wearing leggings at the club. Like, come on, that's not a category. Anywho, Katsi, who's become a close friend, she called a month or so later and said, "Can you come down to Berlin? I've got an idea." Went down to Berlin, came into this restaurant, and there's like 7 or 8 people sitting around, and you could just see on their face that they were like, "This is a really cool idea." And they kind of pitched it to me. They said, "Do you want to create a project with us where we take some individuals and we fast track their careers, and we do a lot of storytelling and media production around it, and we brand it with a collab branding." And
with Adidas.
With Adidas.
This time.
In the DACH region, so Germany, Austria, Switzerland. So that would be wonderful. Yes, please. Thank you. Thank you very much. Went home, started working on that, and this was like, then we started creating rate card. What does that even mean? How much do we cost for our time, and all that kind of agency stuff. So then we kind of slipped into this. Now we're an agency, and we were out producing content, and we made a sub-site, or what do you call it, like a microsite, and we produced photo books with a photographer, and we built a tattoo studio for a young woman who couldn't break into the tattoo industry because it was male dominated. Both of them are totally ripping now.
Who financed that?
So Adidas paid everything,
okay.
and kind of leveraged our brand because at the time our brand was, I guess, right place, right time, had kind of the energy that they were looking for.
And such a strong brand. I think Girls Are Awesome.
Yeah.
It's just an amazing name. Like, you really coined that.
Yeah. Well, that was back in 2003 we coined it. But absolutely, and there's not that many brands out there where the brand promise is in the logo.
Now that
doesn't really.
Yeah,
it's like that's the hard thing.
It is
Do that.
super hard to number one, come up with a brand name that makes any sense. Number two, if you can,
Konkursklubben works.
Konkursklubben is as straightforward as Girls Are Awesome.
Yep.
Except you can always ask, well, is it all about depression and bankruptcy and crashing? So we always have to explain that it's all really about turning something hard into something great.
And I guess Adidas did not know anything about your magazine and that whole journey. They just
they did.
They knew you.
Yeah.
How so?
Okay, wow.
Just through. So Danny and I would go down to Berlin twice a year to the trade shows, where all the board sports trade shows and fashion trade shows, and I would go around. They call it networking nowadays, but hanging out with people I didn't know.
You were just getting drunk, weren't you?
A little, yeah.
Hanging out with people you didn't know.
Didn't know.
Yeah.
And
stalking,
selling advertising,
yeah,
pitching projects. We like through the magazine we ended up as a top tier event producer for Adidas. So we would produce their global events with like full risk management, and what if those staircases wet, and B-level celebrities and green rooms, and oh no, they're smoking pot out there. What do we do? Oh, how much? Okay, I'm not going to tell her not to smoke pot, but I'm going to find out how much it costs to clean in 6 hours, and all this like. And then we went on to produce like content for Nike and different stuff. So we were kind of phasing into that.
So your background in hospitality also really paid off here.
I was thinking about it before I came in today, and I was, it might sound a little cheesy, but I think what's always driven me is like serving people. And that comes from like the hospitality thing. I've always enjoyed that. And with the magazine, with the parties, has been, let's put on a party that people love. Like, let's get them dancing at 10 p.m. and, saying boo when we turn off the DJ at 4 or whatever, and making people have a good time. And I think that I've really got to live that out with Girls Are Awesome, because it felt like a deeper purpose, but it was also in service.
Yeah.
So to fast track a little, the Adidas thing lasted about 4 years or so, and we ended up going up the ranks. And I remember a meeting, I flew in from New Zealand. I was in New Zealand for a holiday and flew into Germany via Denmark and went down and pitched the global head of brand collaborations, who was dealing with Kanye and Stella McCartney and all these people, and pitched a product collaboration. And then he said, yeah, we make something. And I was like, sick. And then we were like, I was lying on the floor and we had champagne, and it was like a big deal. And we ended up producing 2 seasons with them, with I guess 7 or 8 shoes that went global, and like quite a big collaboration. And that financed us for a while. So we had a wee team of 10, and that kept us going. But then COVID, and then we went bankrupt.
So your bankruptcy story is very much also a COVID story.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, a number of factors, right? The complex nature of our organization, the fact that we were our biggest opportunity. One of our bigger opportunities lay in the fact that we were male founders, was diversifying that ownership group to be majority female owners. That was a big topic for Danny and I. And unfortunately, our partners didn't agree with that, because why should we give away something? I saw it as a huge vulnerability, which it also came to be.
Yeah.
And so we started little sparks started flying there in these difference of opinion. COVID was super hard. I think we were immature enough as leaders to believe, 1, that we were a family, and 2, that it'll be right. And so we had several quite large contracts with large Danish or global brands where they said, wait, cancel.
Okay.
And we put our chips on those every time. So rather than going, we need to downsize, I'm really sorry, but we have to let people go, we didn't do that, which was, in hindsight, not the greatest move.
You were optimists.
Still.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Still. And so we took a loan from COVID, whatever they're called, the Vækstfonden.
Yeah, Eiffel today.
Yep. A pretty significant loan. And we just kept trying to knock down those big doors, because, we strongly believe that diversity can impact your bottom line of your company and make you a better company. And I still believe that. And we had a good pitch by then. We still didn't know what we were, but we had a good pitch on some of the services that we could offer. But unfortunately, it just went dry, right? So,
What were the signs that you didn't see along the way, or you ignored, that you see now?
I think the biggest one was that one I just mentioned about not having enough oversight on the runway, and scaling to follow that. I had a brand director who was kind of my peer. We were, typical kind of flattish hierarchy. Sus and I kind of ran the company. I was trying to pull away from being whatever the the leader of the company was called with us. I think it needed to be run by women, and we should have done that earlier. But I had all the experience from all the little details and I had the intuition, which I think still kept us on path, and at the same time was trying to hand away decision making. Social media, that's not me. I'm not touching it. It's your voice. It's women's voices, right?
Did you run out of customers?
Yeah, and we'd built up the product lines as well, and we had some pretty large customers in the US that had like 900 stores. So if they ordered 3 T-shirts and a beanie, it was like $1 million krona.
When you say product lines, what do you mean?
So we made products. We made T-shirts, and it's kind of an extension of merch. Cut and sew T-shirts, hoodies, beanies, caps, socks, and notebooks, different things. And the plan was to build that out because it was, people like to buy it, and it was either kind of dads with daughters buying a T-shirt, or guys women, girls.
So you weren't using like your partner's product lines, like it wasn't like Adidas that produced the stuff. You had your own. On
top of the stuff that we did, we had collaboration products with Adidas.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
That they produced in their brand.
Produced, in their factories, and it was sold globally. Like it was, it was massive. Like those collabs you see with maybe Woodward or Naked or something, it was times 150. Like big collabs. Yeah. The Danish office didn't buy that many, so we didn't see that much here. But we were doing massive activations in Berlin. Like fashion studios, we would bring people in and pay them for the week to design something and then do a party, or art gallery stuff we did where it was residencies. Yeah.
Can you take us back to the time around your bankruptcy? Try and tell us the story about how your days went. Yeah, of course. You talked about downsizing and then going bankrupt. Please tell us a bit. Take us through one of these days.
It's all a bit of a blur. I don't know how it was for you at that time.
It's complete blur.
Like I have, we call it in my family, elephant tinker. I remember kind of everything. I can remember dates, times, names, faces. And then there's a big couple of years. I don't even know what year it is. We were just kind of trying to hustle through COVID. There was conflict in the ownership, diverging opinions, let's call it that.
Between you and Danny?
No, me and Danny have always kind of been on the same path.
So who are the other owners in the company at this stage?
We had a design agency that came in very early and kind of took half.
Yeah.
Or didn't take half.
They got half.
Yeah, they got half. And and we had an investment from a lovely English chap at some stage pre-COVID. That money miraculously disappeared somehow. That's another story, not for on air. Thanks, guys. Yeah. We had Pia, who was a Finnish woman living in Sweden, financial lady, and we vested some equity to Sus, who was our brand director. So I don't know how to talk about it. It was hard because we were focused on the money, and we were focused only on the money. There's also a bit of a shitstorm. In this time, there's some people who don't believe that men should be running these things, and kind of go a little bit attack on the brand, but also specifically me and Danny, but predominantly me. And that took a toll. I remember going for a walk. I had a mentor at the time, and I was walking up and down Borbjergsvej in Sydhavn, just trying to get advice on how to untangle, because it's complicated, and money and staff. And he said to me, the thing about stress is it's like an elastic band. You may have a really high threshold, but once it snaps, it's really hard to put back together. And I can remember myself going, and my lips started to shake. And I went, and he said, "I think you should go home." And I went into the office, and I started crying, and I said, "I'm gonna go home now." And I went home, and I crawled into a ball, and I stayed there for a week or so. And fast forward, came back 6 weeks later, a bit of a shell of myself, not knowing who was going to yell at me on the street, which happened, not knowing who to trust, not knowing if my staff were behind me or in the way or whatever. And I came in and I looked, and meanwhile Sus had handed in her resignation, which I 100% respect and love her to bits. But she became the mediator between two parties that didn't agree on the future. And I looked at the finances and I looked at what we had incoming, which was basically nothing, and we didn't even have a runway for 6 weeks. We couldn't pay the team. And I was like, shit, okay. So it's like end of the month, and with firing people, you got to do it at the right time. And I was like, I've never done this, and yeah, so had a quick meeting with Danny, discussed it on the way towards the announcement of that we were going to let everyone go. I think we were unsure who was going to say the words, and he's like, I think it's you. And I was like, ah. As I went into the room, I remember I had to hold on to the wall to stand up because I was just not feeling super amazing. And I said to everyone that we're going to have to let everyone go. And I remember speaking with you guys before this about how if I had any regrets or anything I could do it over, I would redo that moment, because I did it from my perspective of a weakness and fear, and I was scared, but I didn't take their perspective, and I would have said different words if I'd known. And so that impacted them, and they didn't really, in their insecurity, and they had built the brand. They built it for us, with us. And so that was brutal. It's horrible. Everyone, including myself, including Danny, everyone's out. And that started the process of about a year and a half of officially going bankrupt, which you know about, and then the kind of battle to get back the IP and the trademark and the logo and get that from the lawyers, because I wanted to protect it.
Mm. So where is Girls Are Awesome now? I mean, the IP.
I know where it is, and it is with our ex-partners.
Okay.
When we were heading towards bankruptcy, we had meetings, and we said we need to save this from bankruptcy. They didn't want to go bankrupt. I didn't want to go bankrupt.
No.
With no incoming and no outgoing, we didn't really, we couldn't, we had a few months where we could make these decisions. We made a to-do list each. Our to-do list was all these practical things.
Yeah.
And their to-do list was help find funding. We didn't hear from them for many months. Then my lawyer advised me and said, you risk, if you don't go bankrupt now, you risk, I don't know what it's called, but where you're abusing your position to pay off small suppliers, but you actually owe quite a large amount of money to this big creditor.
Yeah.
And that's getting into shaky ground. He said, you need to go bankrupt. I had 2 advisors at Evalshus and Early Warning, and I had a lawyer here, pro bono, thank goodness. And I didn't know, and I was so scared. I was like,
And it's impossible to make the right decisions when you're scared.
Yeah, and plus going down with stress earlier, my decision making was completely off center.
Yeah.
I didn't know. I couldn't. So 20 minutes after I announced to the wider ownership circle and the shareholders that we were bankrupt, I got a threatening, intimidating email with kind of a if you blah, blah, blah lawsuit sort of thing. So it continued.
Yeah. So
good times.
What strikes me is really quite the contrast from starting out, having fun, where everything is just about being playful and you're having a good time with your mates and it's all good intentions and purpose driven, to suddenly being in this position where there's a lot of conflict internally in the company, and then going through this horrible divorce. I almost said,
Yeah,
because bankruptcy
that's
is a bit like a divorce, right?
Yeah, I think that's a good version of it. And to add to it, this was a very dynamic agenda to be working in. It was moving and changing. And how do you spell the word women? Is it X? Is it not? If you do one, you're doomed, and if you do the other, you're damned. And there was so much learning and so much it's just shots fired everywhere. And I think, we spoke about this earlier. There's an author, Anand Giridharadas, I'm butchering his name, Giridharadas, who wrote a book called The Persuaders, and I just love this metaphor that he comes with about this super future that most people probably that we know and like agree on, about equality and equity and, anti-racist and anti-sexist and all these things. And, that's on a superhighway. But a lot of us, a lot of the people on the superhighway, maybe controlling the superhighway, they're pretty poor at building on-ramps. And I think we as I think we tried to do that as Girls Are Awesome, as we tried to sit in the middle. And we tried to build on-ramps to people, men as well, about feminism. What does it mean, and how does this benefit society? How does it benefit men? And I think that's political purity is a dangerous thing, and I think it's a shame, because we were right in the middle of that. And I see the way that a lot of people operate nowadays, and sort of taking cues from what we did and not doing that, because we're at the front lines of that, and that's great. Live and learn.
Yeah, doesn't it make you proud though?
Oh, I'm absolutely 100% thoroughly proud of most of the things that we did at Girls Are Awesome. And we received mails daily from people who told us some really, really deep shit about how we had impacted their lives. And I'm completely proud of all of it. Not all of it, most of it. And so...
So that's the thing you can't take away, I think, right? That you can lose the money and there
was no money.
You can lose the money you never had, and the partnerships and the business and everything. But the actual impact, that can never be taken away. That happened.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's there's a lot of cheesy stuff and lines that we used to use, but I think progress over perfection is one that I've always lived by.
That's a good
because we learn all our lives, and why should we be expected to be perfect when we're doing something that's in the public sphere? I think we should be allowed to make mistakes and acknowledge them and move on.
Yeah, you can't really grow a vagina. Or maybe you could get some help with that now.
No, I couldn't grow one. I think that would be tricky.
Yeah.
No. Pretty damn close. But really, I would be. I just want to underline that you really did have impact with what you've done. I've seen the impact in my own life and in culture around Denmark and in careers for women. So both in Girls Are Awesome, you had great impact. Also in Bitch Slap magazine, you had great impact on the culture in Copenhagen. So thank you for that. That's also why we have you here today, because we wanted this story to come out.
Isn't it mostly because you wanted to get your 5,000 kroners worth from 2005? I got to get something for that, man.
I paid you 5,000 kroner 10 years ago.
It was probably not 5,000.
No, it wasn't
that much.
Probably more like 1 or 2. But I'm curious about your relationship with Danny. How did you make it through? You must have had some really, really tough situations that put a lot of strain on your relationship and friendship. How did you make that still work today?
We never had anything that put a strain on the relationship.
How so?
Yeah.
We have been friends since childhood. very early on. I mean, Danny annoys the shit out of me. He doesn't reply my texts. He's like, whatever, but he's also the best guy in the world and an incredible designer, and he makes everything look incredible. And very early on, when working together, we just vocalized. I was quite good at vocalizing, like, you know, friendship first. We're never going to let some company or some partnership or some brand or some whatever get in the way of our friendship. It's not worth it. And it sounds very idealistic and stuff. It's very easy. It was very easy. We're just best mates.
So none of you started treating the other one bad when you were in super stressful situations?
I think what happened, because we were two parties or several parties in the ownership, when it got to that, it was kind of, we had our own party or entity, and we agreed on the direction we believed in, and there was disagreement in our direction with the other party, and so it was easy for us to kind of stick together in our we've always kind of agreed on most stuff. I mean, it really wasn't that hard or complicated, but I think vocalizing it makes a difference, because then, you know, I also had a cheesy one that was like, money's never going to make us, never going to break us. It was never the motivator. We were also fine earning money. It would have been absolutely fine if it was $1 million company, but we were just focused on that the purpose needs to be in the right place. We need to be spending that money in the right ways to speak to our vision, which is basically equality, gender equality. I was happy to earn money. We worked really hard for it. We work super hard. It's okay to earn money. I'm super inspired by Patagonia, and I wish there were more companies that would pick up that, you know, let's exploit capitalism for what it is, to make gains in environmental, and now the EU's, you know, kind of forcing these ESG box ticking, which is a step in the right direction, because people need to be told, because most companies exist to make profit. And that's what our partners believed. We exist to make profit, and I disagreed in that. I wanted to change things. Very idealistic, and it's probably people listening like, oh, no wonder you went bankrupt, man. But I still believe in that, and it's possible.
Yeah, but the vision didn't go bankrupt, I guess. No,
we set a vision for other people too.
I think capitalism came in and messed with your purpose and your vision.
Yeah.
And you were exploiting capitalism just fine until it really started messing with you too much. Thank you very much, Nick, for coming by. It's been a great conversation for me.
Oh yeah, thanks. Thanks for inviting me. It was amazing, and absolutely. You know, you look at it and you go, why did it take me so long to recover or whatever? And it takes the time that it takes to come over these things, to get past them. And there was many facets of it for me. And I think there's something to be said around, you know, if you're committed or dedicated to something, or you make it your identity. And I think there's a difference there. Maybe I picked that up off another episode of your podcast, right?
Yeah, she talks about being attached to the company.
Yeah, I was like, damn, I needed that lady in my life 3 years ago. But I loved a lot of what she said about, you know, just putting your entire identity into something. Yeah. You don't need to do that. You can be the same person.
It was the difference between being committed to something or being attached to something, and it was the Cecilie Wheeler episode that we have.
That's a very mindfulness approach.
It is. It is very
having
much.
No attachment to the outcome of whatever it is you're chasing.
Yeah,
which I've learned. I think.
But sometimes
I'm also working on that.
Yeah, me too. But sometimes we are just attached, and we're fully engaged, and it's every day, it's every waking hour. And at a certain point, if you manage to remove yourself from it, you can then change your attachment to commitment, and commitment can be just as good, and it can also save you when things go south. All right.
Yeah.
For the last words today, I think should be, let's exploit capitalism to push the world in the right direction. All right. Thanks.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Det var så, hvad vi havde på programmet i dag.
Og hvis du har nogle konkurshistorier eller andre gode idéer, så vil vi rigtig gerne høre fra dig. Send os en mail på podcast@konkursklubben.dk eller skriv til os inde på LinkedIn/konkursklubben.
I kan også finde mere information om os på vores hjemmeside konkursklubben.dk eller på YouTube, hvor alle de her episoder også bliver lagt op. Husk at like, share, subscribe og kommentere.